indicator of the average price movement over time of a fixed basket of goods and services. So the definition in itself says that it is an indicator. First thing, it is telling you the indication what is happening in the inflation, first thing. Secondly, it is indicator of average price movement, whether the price is increasing or the price is decreasing over time, right? It will be having a fixed time of a fixed basket. It is very important. That means whatever is the index, it is only telling you about the basket. That means a basket might comprise of, for example, it is having any product A, any product B, any product C. So that means it is only telling you inflation in the ABC only. But subjective is that ABC will try to represent the all the goods and services in the economy. They will try to represent. ABC will be selected on the basis that they will be uh, representing the almost the all goods and services in the economy, right? Though they will not represent the whole economy, but the attempt will be to represent the whole goods and services in the economy. So this is the idea, that that price index will indicate first average price movement, second over a particular point of time, and it will be constituting of goods and services. It will be a basket, right? So wherever there is index, right, it's not only about this CPI and WPI inflation. So wherever there is an index, it is constituting of a basket. And you are having, for example, if you talk about the Sensex, what we are hearing nowadays, that it is moving up and down, right? Today it was down. So it is a basket of shares, right? Nifty does not mean that the whole economy is moving up and down, right? It is only a basket of companies, right? 50, 50, 20, whatever it is, right? So it is a basket of the shares which is moving up and down. It is not the whole economy. Though, secondly, though it is not the whole economy, but to an extent it is telling you about the economy to an extent, right? So sometimes it is said to be the barometer of the economy, but it is not the barometer of the economy. In the similar manner, these price indexes, for example, we are discussing this price index and inflation. They are telling you the inflation in the economy, but it is actually not telling you about the reality of the economy in inflationary terms, because it is representing only a fixed basket of goods and services. The constitution of basket of goods and services is done keeping into mind that whether the changes are to be measured in retail, wholesale, or producer prices, right? These are three things, but prominently you might be hearing only this CPI, consumer price index, and wholesale price index, that is WPI. Producer prices are, you might have at least about this PPI. This is producer price index. I'll tell you what it is actually. Right. So first we will try to understand what is the difference between WPI and CPI. So WPI and CPI is nothing but, for example, if you can recall whether I was having that example in this. No. If we take the example which we discussed about that bread example we were discussing. So if we can recall GDP, the concept of GV and GDP, then when we were doing it. So what we were doing, it was factory. Now assume that the output of the factory is going to wholesale market. And then assume that it is going into the retail market. Retail market is nothing but the market in which the final consumer, the end consumer, is consuming the any item. For example, if you are purchasing the bread from any shop, then you are retailer in that case, right? And the person who is selling you, he is retailer, right? And wholesaler means from where this retailer is purchasing the things, he will be wholesaler. That means for a particular, for example, if you are purchasing any bread, right? So that person will be acting as a wholesaler of the particular brand of bread, right? Here it is WPI, it is CPI, consumer price index. So here you see farm, it is coming to wholesale depot. It is WPI, changes in the prices at this point of time, and CPI means change in the prices at this point of time. Now, what is PPI? When we were discussing this GV and GDP concept, factor cost and all those costs we were discussing. So here I was saying that this concept of farm gate price, or I was saying it basic price, right? Basic price, I also talked a component that when it is reaching here, it was reaching to here, there was a component of transportation and other taxes, right? So PPI is actually this, the inflation at the factory gate. Inflation at the factory gate. What is the inflation at the output of the factory? That means any inflation in the producer's price is referred to as producer's price inflation, PPI, right? So PPI is, so more prominently you might be hearing only two terms, WPI and CPI. So WPI is nothing but the inflation at the wholesale seller, and CPI is at the this consumer, at the final consumer, that is and retailer. What is important in this is that you must be aware that who is releasing which index. Keep it in mind, UPSC sometime asks this, that who is releasing which index, right? And many a times they can also ask you, but I don't think they will ask you that what is the base year. Can ask, right? Can ask, but it is not necessary. But many times they can ask you the difference between WPI and CPI. So you must be aware of the differences of WPI and CPI. Okay, I'll later on discuss one very important thing. So WPI is representing the price of goods at a wholesale stage that are sold in bulk and traded between organization instead of consumers. Many times it is also said to be B2B, right? Business to business. And consumer means business to consumer, right? So B2B is business to business. That means wholesaler is the minimum support price for farmers, a producer price. See, minimum support price is altogether different concept, right? We'll discuss it later on. It is altogether a different concept, because minimum support price, producer's price, you can say that, but it is not, it is more about policy. So better to avoid that, using that concept there, right? Because it altogether a policy matter. So it's better if, for example, if you are aware about the concept of e-chopal, if you want to bring this farm side into this thing, so e-chopal of ITC. So the price at which e-chopal is purchasing the wheat from the farmer, right, can be the best example of PPI, right? Or anything which you are going to purchase from a factory. So if you are talking in terms of farmer, so if an individual or if an industry is going directly to the farmer and purchasing anything, then it becomes producer's price, right? Better to avoid this minimum, minimum basic, this minimum support price, because it is somewhat the intervention of the policy, right? So this WPI is released by economic advisor, who is in the Department of Industrial Policy and Promotion, DIPP, and it comes under Ministry of Commerce and Industry. This you have to learn. Now, the index basket of present, the series is 1112, right? This is fixed. That means the base year is 1112, and it has a total of 697 items. Around 700 items are in the basket of the WPI. This is very important. It includes only goods. Keep it in mind. It does not include any services. This is very important, right? Secondly, the commodities are chosen based on their significance in the region. It is simple. It is released on the monthly basis. See, I have written that it is released on the monthly basis, but the data is collected on a weekly basis, right? But it is released in the public domain on the monthly basis. So for you, so for us, it is released on the monthly basis. At many portal, you will find that it is, the data is being collected in at weekly basis, right? So it is released on monthly basis. So if you see the composition of WPI, the manufacturing part is 64%, right? That means WPI, in WPI, the composition of manufacturing is very high, right? Focus on it because I am going to ask you a question based on this. I'll see that how much you are understanding. It is saying that manufacturing is constituting more than 50%, that is 64%, followed by primary, that is primary sector, and followed by fuel and power, that is 13%, right? So this is the composition of WPI. That means the basket of WPI is majorly constituted of manufacturing sector, then followed by primary, and then followed by fuel and power. Coming to the CPI, Consumer Price Index, right? Already discussed. It is measuring the changes in the prices at the consumer goods and services purchased by households. It is released by NSO, National Statistical Office. Previously, it was CSO, Central Statistical Office. Now the name has been changed. NSSO and CSO has been merged to form NSO, National Statistical Office, right? Which comes under Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation, right? Nothing to explain. Now, you have to understand one thing. Prior to 2012, CPI was compiled for these four things. That means CPI was calculated for industrial workers, first thing, for agricultural labor, for rural labor, and for urban non-manual employees. That means industrial worker is clear, agricultural labor is clear, rural labor is clear, right, which is apart from agricultural laborer, and urban non-manual employees, right. The first three, industrial worker, AL and RL, were compiled by Labor Bureau in the Ministry of Labor and Employment. And the most important thing is this fourth one, right? It is not now compiled by the government of India. First three are still compiled by government of India, right? First three are still compiled by government of India. It is no more compiled by the government of India, right? First thing. Secondly, this fourth one was compiled by NSO, National Statistical Organization, but it is now being discontinued. So there is no relevance of this, right? And very much important point is this thing. Many times it has been asked in UPSC and all other exams usually ask this question: what is the basis of dearness allowance? So this AI, All India CPI industrial worker, is the basis of calculating your dearness allowance on a quarterly basis, right? This question is many times asked in the exams, that what is the basis of calculating the central government DNS allowance on a quarterly basis. So this is industrial worker. You must be aware that who is releasing this data. This is being released by Labor Bureau, and I think the office which is releasing this data is in Shimla, right? So this is the Labor Bureau which is releasing, compiling these three indexes, and fourth one is discontinued and it is under the Ministry of Labor, right? Now see, if you talk about these three or talk about four of them, do you think that all these four indexes constitute of the whole population, right? No. Most of the population is not covered in these four, right? For example, if you're talking about industrial worker, then many of the workers who are not in the industries, right? So if you're talking about even in urban areas, so many of the people are not covered in this index. That means you are not covering majority of the population or any part of the population which you are not telling that what inflation they are facing. So the government of India in 2012 came up with the new CPI series. They came up with a new CPI series, and what they are doing, they are having two series mainly. One is CPI rural and other is CPI urban, right? And what they are doing, they are combining, right? CPI rural plus urban. That means it is telling you about the rural area inflation and it is telling you about the urban area inflation. That means your whole population is covered in terms of your effect of inflation, right? So if you see here, these four CPIs reflect the effect. That means previous CPI which we have discussed reflect the effect of price fluctuation of various goods and services consumed by specific segments of population, right? These indices did not encompass all the segments in the population and thus did not reflect the true picture of the price behavior in the country as a whole. It is clear. Then new series of CPI was started in 2012, right? And the base year is 2010, right? The beauty of new series CPI series is it includes services. It includes services. Keep it in mind. WPI does not include the services, right? While CPI includes the services. And basket comprises of 448 items for rural and 460 items for urban area, right? And this central statistics office, right, which of MOSPI, Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation, has started compiling a new series of CPI for entire urban population, entire rural population, and consolidated CPI for urban and rural, right? Now see the composition. This is also you have to understand, because there are certain analytical answers based on these compositions, which we will discuss later on. Even I am expecting a question on this concept in any mails, because UPSC has not asked any question on inflation targeting in the mains, though they have asked question on inflation targeting, I think in PT, but not in mains. It is pending. So from here, we will try to understand later on that what is the use of this. See here, CPI is constituting of 46% is of the composition is of food, that means primary, and 7 is of fuel. 46 plus food, 7, total 53, right? That means your 53% of CPI is constituted of food and fuel. First thing. Secondly, besides that, it is comprising of 2% pen and tobacco, clothing and footwear, 7% something, and this housing is 10%. Miscellaneous comprises of 28%. It is mostly comprising of your services part, like education, health, etc. Right? This component was absent in the WPI part, which is present in the CPI part. Now, so this is all about CPI. Now, my simple question is, if you have gone through this idea that the composition of WPI and CPI, my simple question is, if you have observed the WPI and CPI since, if I say this October 2019, if I talk about October 2019 onwards almost, there's a disparity, wide disparity, not only disparity, but wide disparity between the WPI and CPI, first thing. For example, it is consistently increasing and it has achieved the range of around 6%, while WPI is in the range of, it has been in the range of less than 1%. Even if I can recall it better, it has gone beyond negative, right? So what do you think, what can be the reason? Any idea? Your answer is hidden in the components. Any idea? Due to importance given to service sector, holding of goods, any other thing? Manufacturing growth. No. That means you want to say that we are having a manufacturing growth in this since 2000 October 2019. Do you feel so that there is manufacturing growth since October 19? Okay, you are saying manufacturing growth? No. Okay. Any other idea? See, the basic thing is, rise in prices. See, you are reaching nearer to it, but that's the main point, that where rise in prices is taking place. Ah, yes, yes, yes. Actually, you're right. See, if you see Adit is to an extent right. If you see the composition, WPI, 64% is constituted of manufacturing sector. This is WPI. And since 1 year, if you talk about 1 year or 8 or 9 months, this sector is not growing at all. If you talk about this PMI index, purchasing managers index, what we discussed, IIP index of industrial production, all these things are not growing at all. Either they are static or they are not growing at all. Even if you see the GDP data of the previous quarter, it was saying that only growth was because of the government expenditure, right? The mainly growth was only because of government expense. That means this sector, which is mostly constituting the WPI component, it is least growing, right? Because it is least growing, when there is no growth at all, that means there is no inflation at all in the manufacturing part. I think it is clear, right? Now coming to this part, CPI. So I told you that 53% part of CPI is constituting of food and fuel. And this component is consistently, the rates in this component, the inflation in this component is consistently increasing. While in the case of WPI, this component is consistently decreasing. There is nowhere inflation in this component. That's why WPI is consistently going downwards, while this component is consistently going upwards. It is going northwards while that is going southwards. That's why there is wide disparity between WPI and CPI. See, observe all these concepts, because many a times UPSCs, because such things are being covered by your economic survey, right? And when economic survey covers such points, then this your UPSC put questions, right, directly on these concepts, right? Now, next is inflation targeting. Inflation targeting, has already we discussed, that it is a monetary policy strategy used by central government to maintain inflation within a range. It is because of a monetary policy framework agreement signed in this. It will be decided by monetary policy committee. That is very important. It is to be decided by MPC, right? And they will fix the policy rate. See, repo rate, because of its importance, is also said to be the policy rate. And the objective will be to contain the inflation. And the objective of containing inflation is actually inflation targeting within the specified target level. So the main features of inflation targeting are, the target is, single target is inflation, first thing. And keep it in mind, this target is CPI. It is not WPI. It is not WPI. It is only CPI, right? Second, single objective is price stability, right? It is clear. Anchor index, consumer price index, that means no WPI. Prior to this, prior to the concept of inflation targeting, the policy anchor for RBI was WPI. But now 2016 onwards, it is consumer price index. And the single instrument used by the central bank is repo rate. It is repo rate, right? Now, implication of inflation targeting regime, it is bringing transparency. I'll tell you how it is bringing transparency. It is increasing central bank accountability. It reduces price variability. Empirical evidence shows that this regime has helped central bank to maintain low inflation. We'll see it. Enhance public understanding of monetary policy and an improved state for economic growth. Now, try to understand this. What is happening? Prior to this monetary policy framework or inflation targeting concept, the inflation objective or whatever be the policy rates, these rates were announced by RBI, right? That means what they are deciding, how they are deciding, it was opaque. Only the RBI officials, especially RBI governor, right? He was the whole soul in charge for announcing this monetary policy, first thing, right? So it was the exclusive domain of RBI. That means people, the common man was not aware what was the basis of deciding the monetary policy by RBI. Now what is happening, that there is a committee, MPC, Monetary Policy Committee, and this committee is having representatives from government plus RBI, right? Secondly, there are deliberations between these people, and these deliberations are being covered by the media, right? They are to an extent, whatever is being deliberated upon, they are in the media, which was not in the case of previous regime. And secondly, so that's why it is promoting transparency. Secondly, accountability. That means RBI has been asked to maintain the CPI inflation within the range, and this range is 2% to 6%. The range is 2% to 6%, right? So it is making RBI more accountable, because RBI is accountable if your inflation is breaching these things, right? These targets, 2 to 6. So it is, I think, clear. Now, see, if you see this, this is the graph, and since 2000, this 15, 16, if you see now from this 7.39, it is consistently decreasing, and until 2020 it has not reached 6%, right? It has reached 6% only in 2020, right? Because of a number of reasons, right? So if you see that if the whether RBI was in a position to achieve the target, yes, RBI achieved the targets, right? And this soaring in the inflation is only on the account of food prices, right? It is on the account of food prices. Keep it in mind. It is on the account of food prices, right? Now, issues with the inflation targeting. This is very important concept. What is the issue with the inflation targeting? Try to understand this. As we discuss one thing, one very important, I was again and again focusing on one thing, emphasizing on one thing, that food and fuel. And see, whenever we are discussing inflation targeting, that means we are only concerned about CPI component. So here we will be focusing only on the CPI part. So I told you one thing, food and fuel was comprising of 53%, right? First thing. And secondly, I was saying, now assume that it is 50%, right? Assume that it is 50%. Now RBI is being asked to control the inflation from 2 to 4%, 2 to 6%, sorry, right? Now assuming if you take the real picture of Indian inflationary regime, then if you can recall the times of UPA 2, right? So in UPA 2 times, the inflation in the food was more than 10%. I am taking more optimistic part, it is 10%. So now see, if it is 10 plus, for example, it is X, I am taking it in the manufacturing part, right? Manufacturing and other part upon 2, right? Because this is 50%, this is 50%. Even it is more than 50%, but I am taking it at 50%. Now I am saying the RBI has to maintain it in the range of 2%. First equation. And second equation says that 10 plus X, 6%. RBI can allow inflation in this range. I think it is clear. These are simple equations. Now see, if you find out the value of X, simple equations. So X comes out to be -6 here, right? And here X comes out to be 2%. Do you think if RBI is being asked to maintain inflation in this zone, 2% to 6%, right? And if the inflation in the food is 10%, that means inflation in other regions should range from -6 to 2%. Is it clear or not? First tell me, then I'll move ahead. Are these two equations clear to you? Are you understanding what I want to convey? Okay, that means you are getting this point. That means, and secondly, that means if there is inflation in the food part, and you are asking RBI to control the whole inflation, because RBI is not concerned only about the food part. Now RBI is concerned about the whole inflation. Now if you see these equations, and if there is high food inflation in the market, then that means RBI has to control the inflation by controlling the liquidity in the manufacturing sector. Are you getting my point? That means RBI is being asked to control the whole inflation, while he is having control, the RBI is having control only on the manufacturing sector. That means what you want to say to RBI? RBI is actually controlling liquidity in the manufacturing sector, while the inflation is coming only from the food sector. This is the idea, and this is the only issue with the inflation targeting concept. Now see, in India, this food and fuel, as discussed yesterday, food and fuel inflation is the supply side constraint. Keep it in mind. It is supply side constraint. RBI has no control on food and fuel inflation, because there are issues of structural inflation. There are issues of this infrastructure policies, and number of factors are there which are out of bound of RBI, right? First thing. And it is because of supply side constraint that contribute to inflationary pressure, especially for food and fuel, right? In the CPI, weight of the food is high. Weight of the food is high. As I have said, that it is more than 50%. Illustratively, 47 point, and the weight of fuel and light is 9.49 in combined CPI, right? Thus, the weights of food and fuel account for more than 57% of CPI combined. Hence, the pressure to contain the overall price level in combined headline CPI would be significantly large for non-food and non-fuel items. That means RBI has been asked to control headline inflation, right? To control headline inflation by only controlling the liquidity in the core inflation, by controlling the liquidity in the core inflation, right? So I think you are clear with this concept, that in the case of inflation targeting, can RBI opt to control only core inflation instead of headline? It has been given target to control the headline inflation. It is a policy matter, right? We and you can't decide that what RBI should control. It is, if you talk right now, it is under the monetary policy framework, right? It is an agreement between Government of India in Feb 2015. It was an agreement, and it will continue until 5 years. That means 2021. The period is ending on Feb 2021, right? So until 2021, Feb 2021, the government can and only decide, government and RBI can decide that what should be under the control of RBI. We can't decide that what should be under the control of RBI, right? So by this concept, you might be understanding that issue with the inflation targeting, correct? Now, any question till now, right? You can ask the questions with reference to all this inflation, monetary policy, and everything, especially inflation, which we have completed till now. Please ask. Any questions? Then I'll be starting fiscal policy. See, I am having 2 sessions, so I am trying that I'll be discussing fiscal policy, and tomorrow I'll plan to give a brief about this banking sector, and what I'll be telling you, planning, right? In half an hour, I'll only discussing only the things. I'll not be having the PPT and all those things. I'll only brief you about planning. Will brief you about this planning part, budget part, and banking part. Whatever will come, I'll discuss. And any other part, you can do one thing. If you want to understand any other thing which you see that is more fundamental, and which you want to understand on a day-to-day basis, that I can explain it to you tomorrow, right? You can ping me one-on-one, right? So is there any question regarding inflation so that I can discuss? No query. It is surprising that there is no query in inflation part, monetary part. Either you have understood it all thing, or I think you haven't understood anything. Right. I missed the issue part due to bad internet. Can you explain again? Okay, issue part. Issues with the inflation targeting, right? Okay. See, inflation targeting. Let me new share. See, we discuss it in a manner like this is the, we were discussing that when we're talking inflation targeting, na, so in the inflation targeting, so, see, the main point was CPI is having more than 50% of the composition is of food and fuel, right? So now what you have asked RBI to do, you have asked RBI to control this CPI headline inflation, right? So headline inflation is, for example, and you have asked him to maintain, RBI to maintain it is in the range of 2 to 6%, right? So what does it mean? More than 50% of CPI is constituted of food and fuel, while RBI has no control on the inflation in food and fuel, right? Remind it, RBI has no control on food and fuel. That means you are asking RBI to control something that is the total inflation, while more than 50% of the items are out of control of RBI, right? That means you are asking RBI to control something which is out of control of RBI. That means what will RBI do? 50%, for example, other things are there. So that means you are asking RBI to control 100% by having a control over 50%. That means what RBI can do? RBI can control only this 50%. That means if there is inflation in this, then what RBI will do? RBI will check the inflation in this part. That means ultimately your this part will be at the loss. That means manufacturing part will be your loss, because RBI will always try to squeeze the liquidity when there will be less liquidity into the market. That means manufacturing part will be having less liquidity. That's why the inflation in the food and fuel will affect the liquidity in the manufacturing sector, right? So this is the issue with the inflation targeting, right? Now this is all about inflation. This is your budget part, and budget part you have to go through only your this NCRT, right? You have to go through NCRT. Now see, this is nothing, this is mixed economy, it is saying. Coming to this, see, fiscal policy, as I already discussed. So who will decide the structure that need to be accounted in the government? I didn't get you. Who will decide which structure? Who will decide the structure that need to be accounted in the government? What structure you are referring to? Please tell me. Headline inflation. See, headline inflation. Okay. See, these things are decided by, for example, if you are having this NSO, National Statistical Office, most of these surveys are conducted by these people, right? Besides that, all the ministries are there. They will be telling you, for example, they will be telling you that what type of things are people consuming. For example, 5 years back, people were consuming something different, right? So prior to it, we were not having the idea of services part. So we have only included services part in the new CPI series now, right? That means it depends upon the changes in the economy, and these things are being decided by the offices like NSSO, National Statistical Office, which has become NSO, right? So effectively you can say that NSO and the government, this Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Agriculture, and all those people are involved in this. But yes, mainly this is the task of Statistical Ministry, MOSPI, under which this such activities, most of the surveys are conducted by NSO. Keep in mind, most of the surveys, right, are conducted by NSO, right? And such data are compiled by all those people, right, who are in the NSO. Now coming to this part, fiscal policy is nothing but it is basically, actually I want to use this. Is it not possible to use this on this? Okay, I'll only explain. Fiscal policy is nothing but it is telling you about the expenditure and income of the government. First thing, that means the only document of the government, if you see this budget part, then this document is comprising of every detail of the government in terms of their income and in terms of their expenditures. So budget is the main tool of the fiscal policy. Besides that, there are many tools. For example, if you have recently seen the government announcing the Atmanirbhar package, it becomes a part of fiscal policy, because anything which is coming from the coffers of the government, right? Any expenditure which is from the government side will become a part of the fiscal policy. Any income to the government side, whether it is a part of budget or not, it will become a part of fiscal policy. But yes, all these are finally concluded in the budget, because whatever is being announced under the Atmanirbhar package will finally be concluded, will finally be incorporated in your budget part. That's why budget is supposed to be the single comprehensive document which is explaining the fiscal policy of the government of India, right? Now coming to this part, you can go through NCRT. They are saying, they are discussing about how this government budget is allocating the funds, what are the allocation function of the government budget, and they're describing public goods, right? Private goods. Public goods are nothing but the goods which are being used by public without any differentiation, right? When you are using the public goods, there is no differentiation, right? Okay. Right. So allocation function is it is telling you about that where the money is going. So they are discussing about the public goods. Public goods are those things which are open for the public. Everybody can use without any differentiation, without any partiality, right? And many things which, for example, national defense, you cannot say that the national defense is exclusively for the rich, or the police is for the rich, right? So these are the goods which are provided by the government to the public, right? For the citizens. Public goods means it is available for the citizen, right? Private goods means that they are not private goods are exclusively for those people which are providing which are paying, right? They are on the payment basis, right? So private goods are being provided only for those who can pay, right? While public goods have no such compulsion that you have to pay for it. Correct. This is talking about non-excludable. Yes, public goods are non-excludable in the sense that you cannot exclude an individual on the basis whether he can pay or not, right? So many times it is being argued that the people are acting as a free riders. Okay, redistribution function of the government budget. The present governments across the world are known as welfare state. The present governments are said to be the part of welfare state. You will be reading about this concept more elaborately in this political science or in polities, right? In polity part. Redistribution function means that you are a welfare state. That means government is taking money from the rich, right? And redistributing it among the poor. What we discuss in the concept of the trickle down theory, right? It's a if you can more interestingly, if you want to understand, it is a Robin Hood sort of thing, right? They are taking money from the rich, right, and they are distributing it among the poor, right? So this is the redistributive function of the government, which is welfareistic component of the government. The core of budget starts from here. Stabilization function is nothing but it is ensuring proper demand and supply, in the economy, right? It is very clear, we have discussed in the previous part. Now this is the important things from here. UPSC usually asks from this part, right? The fact whatever is being given in this these paragraphs, you have to cram it simply, because UPSC will simply ask that what is the concept of revenue receipt, what is the concept of, they will give you fact, right, which is revenue receipt. I'll explain you all these things, right? See, revenue receipt is nothing but, let me explain with an example. Budget is actually two component. An example you can take, for example, if you are seeing any hospital nearby you, right? So what happened, or for example, you can take the example of IIT. The government want to establish an IIT in any region. For example, I think there is triple IT in Hyderabad. So you want to establish, there was triple IT, the institute was established in Hyderabad. So what happens initially, that initially government has to have an expenditure on constructing a building, right? And this expenditure will be one time, first thing. Secondly, this expenditure will result in creation of asset, right? And third thing is it will not be of the recurring nature, right? It will be of no recurring nature because it is one time investment. Secondly, it is creating asset. Clear? Now, after 2 or 3 years, when the your institute is being constructed, now what is happening after 2 or 3 years? Now the government is spending money on a day-to-day basis, means on a monthly basis, on monthly basis. That means recurring, right? Third, this your expenses on a monthly basis are not creating asset. Keep it in mind, they are not creating any asset. They are only used for day-to-day maintenance, right? They are only maintaining day-to-day maintenance, right? This part, this one-time investment is said to be capital. It is just for your understanding. We will discuss detail in this NCRT. And this recurring nature part, this is said to be your revenue, right? I think the concept of capital and revenue is clear now. Capital is about creating the asset. Capital is one time, while revenue is monthly basis, recurring monthly or day-to-day basis, you can say. And moreover, it is for the purposes of day-to-day maintenance, and it never creates any asset, but it is used to maintain the asset only, right? So there is no infrastructure created with the help of revenue expenditure. Now coming to NCRT. So revenue receipt, right? These are the receipts that do not lead a claim on the government. They are therefore termed non-redeemable. Non-redeemable means that you cannot claim it. That means it is an income of the government. Nobody can claim this receipt. For example, if you have paid tax to the government, you cannot claim from the government that please give me back my taxes, right? So this is non-redeemable. Correct. So the major component of the revenue receipt are two: tax and non-tax. Taxes is clear. Taxes simply means direct tax and non-direct tax. Direct means which is in the form of income tax from taken from the individuals like we and you all people, or it can be taken from the industries also, corporate under the name of corporate tax, right? Secondly, the NCRT is telling you about it is achieved through progressive income taxation. Right. See, progressive income taxation means the rate of taxation increases with the rise in the income. For example, if an individual is earning, if you see the income tax slabs, in the income tax slabs, the rate of income tax rate increases with the income. If an individual is earning 5 lakhs, for example, there is very least tax. If 10, then the rate of interest increases. If it is beyond 1 crore, then there is some sash on that, right? That means that rate of taxation is increasing with the increase in the income, right? While firms are taxed on a proportional basis. For example, if the rate on corporate tax is 30%, that means whatever is the income of the company, they have to pay 30% tax on their profits, right? So non-tax revenues actually consist of interest receipts on account of loans by the central government, dividends and profits. This I'll explain you later on. Let me. Capital receipts. Capital receipts, as I already make you understand that capital receipt is actually used for, try to understand again, I have to take it into scene. See the example. Again, it will be clear with an example. For example, there is a loan, right? We discuss an example of, for example, triple IT in Hyderabad, right? The government took a loan. This loan create liability on the government, right? First thing, it creates liability on the government. But if you see the part of tax, tax does not create liability on the government. Secondly, in revenue receipt, we were seeing one thing, it was talking about certain interest, right? So for example, if the government is taking loan, right, it is forming the liability on the government. But if the government has given a loan to anybody, for example, if center has given loan to Andhra Pradesh, and in lieu of that it is getting interest, so this interest is the income of the government, it will become a part of revenue receipt, right? That means interest, right? So the loan is part of capital, keep it in mind, loan is part of capital, while the interest on the loan is part of revenue. Secondly, if you take the example of disinvestment, what happens in a disinvestment? For example, if the government is selling anything, right? For example, it is selling anything, that means there is loss of asset. Simply, if it is earning something, and then it will be loss of asset. So it will be a part of your capital income, capital receipt. Because when initially what we see, and if this is taking dividend, dividend is a recurring activity, right? And it is not creating liability on anyone, it will become part of this your revenue receipt. That means anything which is income of the government on a day-to-day basis, then it becomes part of revenue. And when it is one time concept, I actually try to explain loan and disinvestment, because from this you will be try to understand the difference between what happens with the interest coming on loan and what happens with the dividend coming on the disinvestment. Disinvestment is a part of your capital, loan is a part of your capital, while the earnings on loan and disinvestment is a part of revenue. Keep it in mind, loan and disinvestment are part of your capital, while earning on loan and disinvestment is a part of your revenue, right? I think it is clear, this is important to understand. So if you see here, non-tax revenue of the central government, it consists of the interest receipts, right? As I discussed, it is a part of revenue. Every earning of the government, which is of the recurring nature, is the revenue part, right? Dividend and profits on the investment made by the government. If that means the company or the public sector is the property of the government, it is the investment of the government, and the dividend and profit on these PSUs or any loan given by the government, right? All the dividend and profit on investment made by the government are part of revenue part, revenue income, right? Fees and other receipts for services rendered by the government, it is clear. Cash grants in aid from foreign countries, keep it in mind, this is very important concept, that cash grant in aid is not creating liability. Remind it, all grants in aid are not creating liability on the government. Because they are not creating liability, they cannot be part of capital, right? They are part of revenue because they are given without any liability, right? So cash grants in aid are always part of revenue. If in place of grants in aid there was term loans from the foreign or anybody, it will become a part of capital, right? I think it is clear. Now coming to the capital receipts, the government also receives money by way of loans or from the sale of its assets, right? It is clear. Loans will have to be returned to the agencies from which they have been borrowed. Thus, they create liability. Sale of government assets like sale of shares in PSU, right? Which is referred to as PSU disinvestment, reduce the total amount of financial assets of the government. Keep it in mind, capital income is either creating the liability or reducing the asset. For example, if you took the loan, it will create the liability, or if you sell your PSU, it will reduce your financial asset. So either way, either you are creating liability or you are reducing your assets, right? So this is the idea of this capital receipt and revenue receipt, right? You have to understand this concept, or if you are not understanding, then please ask me, right? You have to learn them because UPSC can directly ask you these questions. Coming to this expenditure part, I have discussed what is revenue expenditure. Any expenditure on day-to-day expenditures, right? That means on day-to-day maintenance part, it is referred to as revenue expenditure. Or if you see here, normal functioning of the government departments and various interest payments, right? Interest payments, what does it mean? Like there we were talking about that interest income is a part of revenue income. Here is interest payment are a part of revenue expenditure, right? Grants given, right? In the income, I talk about that grants in aid were not creating liability on the government. In the similar manner here, if the government is giving grants to anybody, then it is not creating liability on the individual that he should pay back it to the government of India, right? So grants given by the government of India are become part of revenue expenditure. So if you talk about budget document, classify total expenditure into plan and non-plan. See, this concept is redundant now because of initially when we were having the concept of 5-year plan, then this classification was relevant at that time in the sense that everything which was mentioned in the plan, right, a sort of creating asset was a part of plan expenditure, and non-plan expenditure was to maintain that planned asset was a part of non-plan expenditure. Right now it is no more relevant, right? It is just for your understanding. This is important. Interest payment on market loans, right? External interest payment, it is clear on market loan that it is of it is not creating any liability. It is of a recurring nature, right? And it has to be given by the government on a monthly basis. External loans and from various reserve funds constitute the single largest component of non-plan revenue expenditure. Defense expenditure is a part of this, and subsidies, right? Keep it in mind, subsidies are an important policy instrument which aim at increasing welfare, and it is a part of revenue expenditure, right? You must be aware of this. Then comes capital expenditure. See, capital expenditure are nothing but either they are creating physical or financial asset or reduction in financial liabilities. So all the expenditure on acquisition of land, building, machinery, investment in shares, loans and advances by the central government to state and union territory governments, PSUs and other parties are referred to as capital expenditure, right? So this is all about your revenue and capital expenditure. Please learn them, right? That what constitute this. For example, they can ask you that that nowadays disinvestment is going on. So where disinvestment money will go and where the dividend from the this disinvestment is going. What about subsidies? They can ask, right? Direct question you can find on these things, right? Now this is the concept of budgets, right? What a budget is, let me explain it. See, if we talk about budget, so there are two components of the budget: income and expenditure. We will denote it with E and I, right? So if income is greater than expenditure, that means the budget is, or the government is having money with them, that is surplus budget. Second case, income is equal to expenditure. That means it is balanced budget. And third option can be expenditure is greater than income. That means your deficit budget, right? So yesterday I'll discuss many concepts like fiscal deficit. I'll discuss all those things. We'll discuss them yesterday. Sorry, tomorrow. Now tell me one thing, because I want to discuss only the things today. Tell me whether deficit budgets, right, are beneficial for countries or not. First thing. And what about the deficit budget in the context of India or developing country? What do you think, whether the government should go for deficit budgets? If yes, what should be the use of the money? If no, why? Only tell me whether deficit budgets are required in a country like India. Yes. Okay. To support inflation. Krishna, you are saying to support inflation. You are saying, actually, see, it is very important to use a very specific term. Is there if there is any uncertainty? Now, see, let me explain. Yes, fiscal deficits or the budget deficits are required, but within a range. So, what is more important is the uses of the budget, where the money is being used. So if we talk about the expenditures of the government, we talk in two terms: revenue expenditure and capital expenditure, right? So if the money is, revenue means day to day expenditure, right? Only maintenance, operation and maintenance. So if the government is utilizing the money for example, paying the subsidies, salaries, their overheads, that means this is actually inflating your economy, right? It is making, go, for example, if you are if the cost, incurred cost on any ministries increase, right, only for the salaries, that means they are making rich, or they are providing money to a particular section of the society. Whole India is not being benefited. Now see, in other example, if this money is being utilized for developing highway, IIT, AIMS, or any infrastructure project, what will be its impact on the economy? This highway, what this highway will do, this will create demand in the core industries. First thing, it will provide employment to the people, local people. Third, this highway will support other sectors, agriculture, this your services sector, and n number of sectors will be benefited by this, because India is facing the issue of this lack of infrastructure. Already we have discussed, right? Now, if this money is again being used for carrying out the war, right? That means if the money is spending on this component, then this deficit is good, right? There's an ad of Surf Excel in which it says that daag achhe hain, right? So if the money is being spent upon this capital expenditure, then why do government invest more in infrastructure than capital investment? See, capital investment, I'll explain you. You are confusing in between capital and infrastructure. I'll explain you, right? See, now it is clear that if the expenditure of the government is on capital expenditure, that means creating the assets, then it is very much beneficial for the economy. And if it is only used for maintaining their day-to-day expenditures, then it is not at all required, right? This is the idea of the deficit, right? So if you why you going more in infrastructure than capital revenue? Okay, you are saying that why governments are spending on revenue. Now see, they have to do it, right? For example, if the public sector units are getting sick, if the public sector units of the government are getting sick, and if they are not paying them money, then what these people will do? They will create unrest, right? And the priority of the government is to maintain the peace, across the country, right? So there are certain things which are out of, that's why the governments are planning to do away with all these sick, where they are, where there is recurring cost of the government, that they want to do away with all those things. And these are the reasons why government are planning to save public sectors, right? So here you are clear. So in the past, what the countries were doing, for example, if you can recall the times of World War II, you might be when you will read world history, there you will see that the inflations were at the peak, right? Deficits were at their heights, and in those times, most of the deficits were because of the wars, and that spent money on the war was actually what destructive, right? That spent money was really leading to the destruction. So that type of expenditures of the government are not required at all, but any expenditure which is promoting the assets, right, are beneficial for the people at large. So such deficits are required. But yes, deficits should be within the range. For example, if you talk about India, it has been defined that within 3.5% and something else, right? These are to be decided by the government of India along with FRBMA, right? This is fiscal and responsibility. There are certain acts which has to be compiled by the government of India, right? So this is all about your concept of deficit and all those things. Any doubt? Because I think there is another class. Any question you can ask, but please be fast because there is class of Connect Sir after 7:30. Is less government, more governance policy measure to reduce the revenue expenditure? Exactly, exactly. More governance simply means that you want to you want to facilitate an ecosystem in which there is least government. Least government means the least government infrastructure. If, for example, if you talk about that direct cash transfer, what is happening? That means you have done away with all the machinery which was coming in between the government and the beneficiary, right? So what this information technology is doing, that people are in a position to directly talk to the government. That means all the machinery which were in between the individual and the government is will be no more if they are adopting all these things. Is the expenditure on COVID-19 revenue expenditure? Mm, yes, this expenditure, though it is of non-recurring nature, but most of this expenditure, for example, if you see, we have category, see, go by fundamental simple. So if you see, most of the Atmanirbhar package is a part of subsidy, and subsidy is a part of revenue. I think if you're having any doubt, and one thing, if you want to understand anything which you think that I should go through tomorrow, right, please ping me one on one so that I can incorporate that in tomorrow's class, right? But otherwise, I'll be discussing this deficit part, fiscal deficit, and all those things. And besides it, I'll be telling you the part of planning. I'll only speak, right? No PPT and nothing, because it will take time. I'll only explain you the fundamentals of planning and all those things, and I'll explain you about banking, that how banking, what changes took place in the banking sector since independence, and what is the current. You should be in a position to understand the concept of payment bank. What is payment bank, right? What is this Paytm and all those things, right? We'll try to understand all those things, right? Okay, thank you very much.